Hey everyone, it's Anthony from Pretty Printed here. In today's video, I'll be showing you how to use Flask-Marshmallow to convert your SQLAlchemy models to JSON very easily. So if you've used SQLAlchemy, then you know it can be a little tricky to convert the data in your table, in the database table, to JSON, even though a lot of times that's what you want to do directly. Oftentimes, if you want to do this, you have to write your own code that goes through and reads all of the columns in your table and then converts them to a Python dictionary and list combination. And then finally, you can JSONify those objects or those data types, and then you'll get JSON output. But Flask-Marshmallow makes it very easy for you to do this in somewhat of an automatic way and almost a magical way as well. So make sure you understand how Marshmallow works a little bit before you try this. Otherwise, this won't make any sense at all and it will seem like complete magic. So to demonstrate this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a couple of SQLAlchemy models, add some data into the database, then I'm going to return that data by passing it through Marshmallow so I can see it as JSON data. So the very first thing I need to do is I'm going to instantiate Flask-SQLAlchemy, so db, pass in the app, and I'm going to create a couple of models for this. So I'll create one called user. So db model, and the user is just going to be a username. So db column, it's going to be an integer. Primary key is going to be true, and then I'll have a name for this. So db column, db string is what I want. Let's say 50 characters long. And then I'll create a second class that will have things that belong to users. So something that can belong to users, let's say, I don't know, rewards. So db.model. So I'll change this to reward, make it singular. So db model. So I'll have the same primary key. So integer, primary key is true. Then I'll have a name for the reward. So let's call this reward name. It's going to be a string as well. So db.string. Let's make this 250 characters. And then this is going to belong to a certain user. So user ID. So db column, db integer, if I can spell integer correctly. And then it's going to be foreign keyed to my user.id. And then finally, I'll create a relationship. So rewards, or excuse me, I want users. And users will be, actually no, user. So I'm thinking backwards. So user will be db relationship, and I'll call this user, or it's referencing the user table. And then the back reference that I'm going to have on user is rewards. So that's where I meant to put rewards. So now that I have that, I can actually go ahead and add data into the database. So I'll do that. So I'll start up Python from, what is this, main import db. db creates all. So that creates the tables in my database. And then I'll also import user and reward. So I'll just create 2 users and 3 rewards. That should cover everything. So 1 is going to be the first user. So user name is going to be user1. Very simple name. 2 is going to be user2. And then I'll add those to the database. So let's see, add all. I'll pass in 1 and 2. And then what I'm going to do, I'll commit this first. Then what I'm going to do is I'll create 3 rewards. So let's say first, second, and third. So first is going to be reward. And the name is going to be reward1. And then the user is going to be 1. And I should be using reward name, not just name. So let me go ahead and do that again. Second will be another reward, reward name, reward2. And I'll also give this to user1. And then third is another reward, reward name, reward3. And this time the user will be 2. And I just have to commit the session because they get automatically added. So now if I look at the database, select star from user. I see 2 users, select star from reward. I see 3 rewards. Okay, so I have everything that I want in my database. So now what I want to do is I'm going to create a very simple route. So app routes / index return JSONify. So I need to import JSONify. JSONify. And let's call this in progress. So of course this isn't exactly what I want. So let me run the app and just show you. So if I can spell JSONify right, then it will work. So yeah, if I go to the index, you see a JSON object just saying in progress. So that's what I have right now. And what I want to do is I basically want to query for, let's say, a user and return that user as JSON. So first let me get a user. So let's say 1 user, and I'll just do user.query first. So this gives me the first user in the database. So I can't simply say 1 user and then pass it like this because I'll get an error message. Let's see what that error message is. Yeah, it says user 1 is not JSON serializable. So that's where Flask-Marshmallow comes in. So what I need to do is I need to install Flask-Marshmallow and Marshmallow-SQLAlchemy. So let me stop my app, pip install Flask-Marshmallow. I already have it, so it won't install again unless, well, I spelled it wrong, so it's going to complain. But Flask-Marshmallow, so Marshmallow. And then I need to install Marshmallow-SQLAlchemy as well. So make sure you install those 2 things, otherwise it won't work. I have both already, so I don't need to get them again. So I'll start up my app again. And now what I'll do is I will say from Flask __ Marshmallow import Marshmallow. Then I'll instantiate that after I have instantiated the database for SQLAlchemy. So Marshmallow, and I'll pass in the app. So now that I have that, all I need to do is create a schema for both the user and the reward. And creating the schema is actually pretty easy. I don't have to go through and create the attributes directly. I can just pass in my SQLAlchemy models and it will be used to create a schema automatically. So the first schema will be user schema. And I need to import ma.model schema. So as you can see, this is kind of similar to how Flask-SQLAlchemy works. And then I'll create a subclass called meta, and this will allow me to simply set the model to be equal to user. And I'll do the exact same thing for reward. So reward schema. And I won't be using the reward schema, but just to show you, this is how it works. Class, well, actually it gets used implicitly. So the model is going to be equal to reward. Okay, so now that I have that, now as you can imagine, I just need to dump the user object and then I can see it as JSON. So to do that, what I'll do is I'll take this 1 user and I'm going to create a new variable called output, and this is what I'm going to pass to the JSONify. So output, and I'll call this user. So output is going to be, I'm going to instantiate the user schema. So user _ schema, let's call that, and instantiate user schema. And then that will allow me to do this. So user schema, I'm going to serialize. So I'm going to use dump. I'll pass in the actual object, which is 1 user. And then because this is a Marshmallow object, I can either get the data or the errors. In this particular case, I just want the data. So I'll type in data like that. And then what this does is it's going to convert my user object, one that is not JSON serializable, and it's going to convert it to something that is a mixture of Python dictionaries and lists, and those are JSON serializable. So save that. And if I go here, I now see, if I look at the raw data and zoom in a bit, this is exactly what I'm looking for. So I have the ID for the user, I have the name for the user, and I have the rewards for the user, 1 and 2. And this works well for one user. If I want to show all the users, then I have to make very minor changes. For the schema, I have to tell it that I'm expecting this to be many of the user schemas, so I need to set many to true. And then this user query first, I'll change this to all to get all the users in the database. And I'll just keep the rest of the code the same. I'll change this to be users, so it makes a little more sense. Users. And then if I run this again and look at the raw data, I now see the 2 users I have in the database. So user 1 and user 2, and then we can see the rewards that each has. So user 1 has rewards 1 and 2, and user 2 has reward 3. So as you can see, it's very simple to convert your SQLAlchemy objects into JSON data using this schema through Flask-Marshmallow. So it's kind of magical how it works, but if you understand how Marshmallow works, then it's not quite magic. And it didn't take that many lines of code. I didn't have to type out that much, and I was able to output my SQLAlchemy models as JSON. So this works great for any API that you're building and you want to return the contents of the database directly to the user. This works pretty well. It saves a ton of time when you're writing code because you don't have to go through and kind of customize how each field will be handled in the JSON output. Instead, you can have Flask-Marshmallow handle it for you. So that's it for this video. If you have any questions, you can of course leave a comment down below and I'll get to them. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel already, please subscribe. So thank you for watching this video, and I will talk to you next time.